Too broke for me, but
Welcome to Queued Up. Today, we're hanging out with our friends. We're putting the start ranked play match, and we're just waiting for that match to pop. And I don't know if you guys remember in Halo when you're level 50, it takes a little bit of time for that match to show up. It's not that
I've
fast.
always been pretty low ranked, so it's pretty quick for me.
Oh, okay. You pop instantly. Yeah, I'm ready to be in the match.
I'm just logged out of my account to be on this show.
Well, I'll go around the horn real quick. I'm Pathfinder, a.k.a. CJ. Throw it in the comments. Let me know how much you love the Pathfinder name. It's great.
I'm Mongo, also known as Seth.
Nice.
I'm Michael, known as Tumbleweed.
I like how he said his gamer tag, but also known as his first name.
He's more Mongo than he is Seth.
I go by anything these days.
All right, well, I'm Eli, better known as Eli the Ninja.
What's up? Cool. Well, today we're talking all things esports, just like you would as you're sitting in your ranked play. You might talk about how you're going to go grab a snack. You're going to get the chips and the salsa. You're going to do the things. And then you talk about the things that matter in life. And what was the most recent thing? VCT Champions Tour. So we're going to talk some Valorant.
Insane tournament.
Was it? Okay, so I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to a million Discord messages of everyone just like kind of watching
Freaking out,
because I
yeah.
think most of the office was kind of watching it. And it was the one clip. I actually have it. Here, I'll show it real quick. So it's this one right here.
On top of it, and Leaf cannot escape, nor can Trent! 2 kills found, Jogamo still desperately trying to escort them forward, but Jonah P is going to be taken down. And it is all on Jaw to try to stop this Thrifty from coming through. Binds to the reload, completed. An eventual drift online. Swipe it, and he gets it done! Jogamo! What an unbelievable ace!
Jogamo, and it's like this 1v4 right
my
here
God,
the one,
yeah,
on the A
yeah,
site where
yeah.
it's just like he pops one, pops the second, reloads, kind of swings back into it, and then it's like gets a double.
Yeah, the
How do-
lineup.
He's pretty
How do they
good.
let him reload there, though?
It was like just watching it, because that was the first clip I saw before I kind of jumped into it. But just watching it was so, oh, this is really about to be a good match. Because I saw it was 1-1 in the series count at that point. And G2 actually went back and won that map. They were down 7-10 at one point. Actually, it was 6-10. They won the round before that and then kind of flowed through. But it was a really good series back-to-back the whole way.
Well, I think at that point, they're already respecting Jogmo. Because I think at that point, he's probably 30 up in the series, kill-wise.
Yeah,
like
probably.
He finished, I think, like 113 kills at the end of the whole series.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah.
Fucking decimated.
Yeah, but I do see Eli's point. Like at that, you're gonna know the bullet count, right? So you have like 30 bullets or something in a mag. So he's just killed 2 people. If you 2 swing push him, right, then he's not gonna be able to kill both of you most likely. So I do think that them resetting, and then especially that breakdown in comms there because they lined up straight. So that's why he was able to clutch that and get those 2 kills in one. I just think T1 needed a little bit extra comms there, right? And that would have changed that whole round, right? Because that was a big momentum swing.
Yeah, their plan was to like have one crouching in front, one standing behind, which is a common play we saw a lot throughout the entire VCT. And it can be effective, but yeah, Jogamo is just that clutch. Like he saw it and was like, I'm going to headshot you and then let my spray fucking headshot the other guy. It was
In Jogamo's defense too, that was a save round for them. So no armor, mostly pistols. There's only one gun on that side. So they're all kind of pistols. So like normally in a save round like that, you tend to be just a little bit more cautious, right? So like it's a 4v1. We don't have to overswing. Jogamo swings, gets 2, kind of evens the playing field. And then it's like you're just rearing back a little bit because Spike was down. They had to defuse, right? And so it was like you kind of have to go get him. But I agree with you, Kepley, where it's like this concept of like not taking action and kind of sitting on it and thinking about it and stewing was probably a little bit of, I think we saw that a lot with T1.
Yeah.
I think G2 just had a lot of like individual plays that were really flashy that almost won them the game. But in the end, it was more of like, I think T1 coming together in those moments at different times because they really didn't look better as a team, if I'm honest, at times.
No, I think it's the only series. I saw a tweet on this. I actually should have saved it, but it's the only series that someone has won where like all the players are negative. They all had negative KDs.
I think it was. I haven't
Not a
written down
single
here.
player on T1 went positive.
Literally
That's
all
crazy.
T1, and then Jogmo, Trent, and Fallon all went positive, and then of course Jonah and Leaf.
Yeah.
Also, talking about Leaf, not living up to the expectations. I think we all expected him to play a lot better in these series.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because it's a high pressure moment. I don't know if I really like fault him for that, but yeah, he is a really good player, so you do expect him to perform well. But I don't know if I want to speak bad on him or if I want to speak good on the rest of the team, right? Because did he not perform as well because the rest of the team was stepping up? So naturally his numbers deflate. I'm not really sure on that point. But overall, I think G2 played very well. But T1, I mean, they were locked in. They looked like a whole different beast.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I gotta talk about Leaf though. I mean, I got on Twitter the next day, and he said that about a month prior his mother passed away. He didn't tell anyone. He just locked in and played. And I think he played phenomenal throughout the rest of the tournament. Maybe finals got to him a little bit, and he didn't play like the same Leaf that we had seen. But I mean, talk about playing through adversity for your teammates, and you see all his teammates comment on it like, bro, you played your heart out. Like, and it's hard to play. Like, I mean, you're already on the most stressful stage in the world, plus you're going through personal strife. Like, I don't know. I can't be too hard on the guy either. And like you said, the rest of the team was just really playing well.
Well, Leaf, so I'm looking at the stats right now. Map 1, Lotus, Leaf 21-10.
Yeah.
Wow.
Map 2, Haven, Leaf 12-15 on the bottom of his team. Abyss 15-16 towards the bottom again. Leaf map 4 17-22.
I think he stayed with that.
Yeah, towards the bottom again. And then Pearl is when he kind of fell apart. He was 14-23. So I think his middle 3 maps were like he actually maintained like, hey, 1 for 1, right? And a lot of times that wins you the game. Depends on when you do get those 1 kills, if it's kind of a meaningless kill where it's just kind of off to the side or if it's something important. But like he came out swinging in Lotus. But G2 also smoked T1 map 1 Lotus, which is 13-5.
Totally. Yeah, I think G2, I think they were playing very well individually, but T1, they just played so much better as a team. You know, like looking at all the stats, like especially ADR, everyone on T1 being way more consistent, and you have Jonah and Leaf really falling short for G2. And you had Jogmo hitting a lot of like 3 kills, a lot of 2 pieces and stuff, but that doesn't always win you the whole round.
At the end of the day, I know this is a little bit off topic, but I didn't even put G2 making the finals, right? So the fact that G2 even made it here.
Who'd you have? Did you?
I had EDG.
I know you didn't have T1.
EDG.
Yeah,
I didn't have T1 either. I can't remember the bracket I talked a little bit about this week. I can't remember what semis looked like, but I thought EDG for sure would come be in the finals, and then it was just who's going to face them. And because last week EDG and Vitality were the 2 undefeated teams in the bracket, so both of those dropping off for T1 and for G2 to end up here in the finals, I think was a big surprise to anyone.
Yeah,
right? Just
I mean, they were playing so strong, especially at the beginning.
But that just speaks to the quality of these teams and that kind of mental fortitude, right? So EDG kind of fell apart. I put EDG winning this event. That was my prediction last week coming into semis. So just to see the G2 players, I don't really agree with all the speculation online that Leaf didn't perform or this player didn't perform. I think the players just making it to the finals was a miracle in and of itself. And I say all that to bring it back to our current subject of like, did Leaf underperform? I mean, if he's got all that emotional stuff, as soon as you start to hit that in a high pressure thing like the finals, your team probably didn't deserve to be there anyway, but you made it, right? So then you get the pressure of your mom passing away, you get the pressure of being in a finals you probably shouldn't have been in. I think Leaf was just fine. The other players stepped up, but T1 was just so solid that whole series.
I don't know. I kind of disagree with you. Just because you say G2 is more of a team, the underdog, I would say an even bigger underdog was T1 in this whole series. I mean, the whole bracket. I think no one expected them to be in the finals. And you're saying no one expected G2. Those are both 2 teams you did not expect to be in the finals. So I think the same pressure goes on both of them.
Yeah, it felt more like T1 was rising to the occasion and like relying on their teamwork. Like it felt like G2 was almost playing with a little bit too much hubris at times where they were like
super confident.
Yeah, confident, crazy swings and chows. And T1 just, I mean, and it was highlighted in that play that talking about 1v4s them, they take the passive approach to work together to create a kill. And it didn't work in that moment, but that kind of highlights their overall mentality in the match was like, we're going to overcome these superstars with just solid teamwork. And I think that's why they ultimately came out on top. They let G2 make mistakes and fall into their traps time and time again and kind of played their confidence against them, which I thought was the most impressive part. But it really just goes like this team was not expected to be there, and they did not shy away from the moment, and they just took advantage of every single thing they possibly could. And like realistically, from G2's perspective, this shouldn't have even gone to game 4. If they win on Haven game 2, it's over, right? Because they end up winning game 1 and 3, and they kind of threw away game 2.
No, they threw it hard.
And it's like T1 just they saw the door slightly ajar and they just shoved it wide open and took advantage of it fully.
Maps 4 and 5 both went to OT.
You're right.
Which could have easily gone
insane.
G2. Like, and
Yeah.
we were looking at another clip earlier, but it's basically Meteor and somebody versus Valen. And Valen just like gets one kill, and all he has to do is get Meteor, and they win the series. And it's like close. Like he is one bullet away from G2 winning. So like this was an incredibly close series. It could have gone either way. That G2 had a lot of the momentum, and then T1 was just kind of able to chip at it and get back.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about split, the 13-15 game.
Yeah, the 13. It was just crazy close. I'm also looking at the bracket. I didn't realize this. T1 lost in upper semifinals to EDG, and then had to beat Vitality, EDG again, and then make it to G2. And it's like, yo, from a bracket perspective, like T1 went through the gauntlet to get to that.
Totally.
Beat all 3 of the best teams.
Exactly. They literally had to beat everybody once in order to get there, and only lost to EDG in the best of 3 series.
Yeah, I know this is the first major, but like an interesting topic on this, thinking about that. I've seen a lot of people online kind of share your sentiment that T1 are these big underdogs and shouldn't have been there. This is the first, VCT major, right? Whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think T1 belongs in this final scene? Do we see him there again in the future?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that comes from like winning at a big like Worlds type event. And definitely carrying on to is hard. Like you've seen it with a lot of like Americans, especially games like CS:GO. They get one time and it's hard to get back there.
Yeah, it's like, well, my thing is, it's hard to paint them as the underdogs too, because Stax and Buzz, I think, were the 2 new additions to this team that were already successful before they joined. So it's like, it's not even the same T1 that we'd seen in the past that's getting 9 through 12 and all this stuff. It's like, it's a brand new team when you have 40% of your players trade out, right? So I don't know. I think that this team was gelling really well together, and I could see them being front runners in future tournaments, especially because they have so much grit. I mean, like you said, how close those games were to just ice up time and time again when they needed it and ultimately close it out.
Would you call them the #1 Korean team right now?
Right now, yeah. I mean, they had to defeat everyone to get there, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they defeated their next closest rival. Was it DRX?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the big sentiment was DRX had always triumphed over them.
Yes,
this
exactly.
is the first time they'd really come out on top.
But this is the first time they had Stax and Buzz, so it's different, right?
Dude, Buzz did not look good at certain points too. There were map 4, I think. He was just like not winning any gunfight. Was like looking. I think he went super negative. I didn't have the stats. Let me look really quick. But ultimately, like Buzz had some moments where he was frying on map 5. On Pearl, he showed up on the Neon, but he was playing Raze, I think, on what's that?
Game 1, he was on
game
Raze.
1? Yeah, he was on game 1. Raze on map 4 as well, which was it wasn't split. Where is it? Yeah, it was.
Oh,
split.
you're right. Yeah.
It was split. He went 10 and 23 on
Ooh.
split.
Yeah, you can see like just looking at the ADR again. It's an easy stat to go back to. He's finishing with 126 or 127.6, but still going over Sylvan's 1.3. Of course, beating Leaf and Jonah.
I say that this is probably the map that won Meteor the MVP.
You think so?
He went 30 and 23 and literally carried them to the win on that map. And I think that was his 1v5 as well. He had a 1v5 that Meteor just showed up for.
Meteor was locked in, bro.
What all maps did he go positive on?
Who? Meteor?
Yeah.
He didn't do well on Abyss. He was on the bottom of the leaderboard.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody on T1's going negative, like each person had to shine in certain moments.
I think a big talk was like who was the MVP of the overall series, and if you're considering both teams, I think an easy choice is Jogmo.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Jogmo's slayed. He's literally on the top of the leaderboard every single map.
Totally, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
he's like the SVP.
He's insane, bro.
Well, and ultimately, like it was crazy because you know how like when you see players playing, you can kind of like feel the tension in the way they're moving, and like when Jogmo was alive, like they were scared. Like it was very obvious they were scared of him.
Well, I think going back to like the point we first talked to, dude, like dude's reloading and they still won't even swing.
Yeah,
you know?
Not me, not it. Time out. So we agree, Jogmo should be the MVP, not Meteor.
I mean, that's my
if
opinion.
you win.
Right? Exactly. I mean, he didn't win. So
do you think Jogmo, if G2 wins, Jogmo is definitely the MVP?
Oh, 100%. It's undisputed.
Too many clutch moments. I mean, we just kept constantly seeing three-peats, 4-peats.
Not even just in the finals. Like, he was popping off the whole tournament long. Guy's just different, man.
Yeah. I would say he's a big reason. I mean, of course, G2, they played very well up until the point. But he's a big reason why they actually made it there all the way.
Yeah. Well, what about the venue? Let's talk a little bit about I heard the crowd, I saw the crowd, but it wasn't like a big convention center. Like it's a studio, it's kind of more intimate and smaller, I think. And obviously we've seen a bunch of different events from the Rocket League Convention Center stuff to Call of Duty normally takes a convention center. And so did you guys like the studio vibe?
I personally prefer more intimate scenes for esports, like to have the fans that close to the competitors to be able to like yell and to show their support. It can get a little dicey though sometimes. Like I'm from the Halo scene and we had a tournament in London and the European fans were like this is quoted from a North American player that was playing, said that they were so close and yelling that like their spit was falling on them while they were playing, and it's like
I think
that might be a little bit too close.
I don't know, man. That's kind of grassroots. I mean, especially talking about Halo, that is a grassroots game, man.
I mean, I love Call of Duty in the pits. So, I mean, the fans are literally right on top.
Yeah, I don't know. I come from like a motorsports background, so I think the more people right next to the whole scene, the better. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting because like definitely you play on the crowd, and so the crowd when it's quiet in the studio, it's like you don't necessarily get the home field advantage. But I think this studio environment did have some home field advantage because you could tell both sides had some fans, and they were both being loud in a lot of different moments.
Yeah, but the T1 fans were real loud.
Yeah, I'm certain.
That's a good one.
I mean, I think that like created the whole atmosphere for the finals, right? That's a big piece of it. If you have, Vitality and G2, are the crowd that into it? No, but they were really pulling for T1, right? So as T1 kept rallying momentum, you can almost like feel the energy transfer into the players, and then they're getting hyped because you're going to feel, you got to be able to hear in some way. I don't know how good the white noise is in those headphones, but you can feel the rumbles, right? So you're definitely getting hyped. You're getting into it with that home crowd advantage.
You could literally hear them like screaming after like every kill, like like they were so into it. And how could you not be around 30? Like, oh my God.
I mean, to be fair, Riot did do a lot for that studio space. Like, I think when they like unveiled the new operator, they were like bringing like someone out cosplaying as it, like for the show match and stuff, and like kind of unveiling it to like its home crowd too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so they had a lot going for them.
It did. One of the things I also noticed was the demeanor of the players. So if you looked at the G2 players, they were a little bit more stoic. They didn't show as much emotion, where like the Korean players were very emotional when things would happen. Like you could see it, they'd bang on the desk and stuff. Totally. And I thought that was really interesting on like the mental state of the players.
Yeah. I mean, there's psychology is a big part of it for sure, right? Yeah. Like who's better at, I guess, bouncing back if they had a frustrating round or whatever. And you would think the more stoic team would have like the mental edge, but T1 were showing more emotion, hard on their sleeve, and maybe that extra emotion like powered them up a little bit, like, I don't know. I'm the type of player that if I have a particularly frustrating game, like the next game I play a lot better because I'm like, I'm not letting that happen again. Like it's just this annoyed like feeling. And maybe that was kind of what powered them through.
I don't know. I mean, you could probably speak on it more just coming from that Halo like emoji background. They can be some very outspoken players.
Yes.
And when you got someone out there like right in your face talking a little crap, man, like it can kind of get to you.
It depends on the person though, right? Like some players will play worse in that situation because they're like shy and like they get like extra nervous the next time they see that player. But then other players are like, man, this guy's talking. Like it makes them play even better than they normally would.
Yo, why'd you start him up? Like, just chill out.
Yeah. If anybody that's a Halo fan, you might know who Snipe Down is. Never talk crap to that guy, bro. Yeah. He will snipe the crap out of your team in the next game. So
it's like it's in the name.
Yeah, he'll snipe you down, bro.
He'll snipe down. But Eric, don't mess with him. Cool. This was a great event. Really enjoyed watching it. Can't wait to see the next one. I'm definitely going to follow the VCT stuff going forward. But I do want to switch gears a little bit and talk some Call of Duty. Call of Duty, I mean, dude, honestly, from a game perspective, has been a dumpster fire for years. And I remember back in the day, like I would go to all the midnight releases, and I was really competitive and played through the challenges bracket and wanted to do the MLG events, and had a great time with that experience. But honestly, like I think Seth, we were talking before the show, and it's like it's awful to watch. Like it's terrible to watch right now, and it's not really that exciting in some ways. Like it's so frustrating.
I think I was talking to Dylan earlier, and I made the point that like when I watch like VCT or like CS:GO, I feel like I'm watching the best players in the world. Yep. But when I'm watching COD, I think I could be better than 70% of the players out there. Like again, I know like dude, like the scump guys, those guys would absolutely bend me over. Like it'd be horrible, But like just watching them, like even like pro play, they're like diving off the roofs into the swimming pool, trying to hit a shot still, like whiffing everything. It's just, I think it's just boring. They don't seem very talented sometimes.
That's a hot take. That's a hot
That
take.
is a hot
I don't know.
take.
They're
It's my
definitely
take.
talented. It feels more like a Twitch fest and like a reaction time contest.
Yeah,
Because of the TTK is so fast. It's just like,
it is.
can you fly through the door and guess which corner the guy's in faster than he can like return fire? I don't know. But there's more teamwork and communication, like as far as what routes they choose to take and the like hard point. You know, you've got to have control and vision on multiple parts of the map simultaneously. You got to have good coordination. You got to understand the spawn system. You have good sense of timing. So there is more that goes into it. I thought that my issue with it is it all kind of looks the same after a while, and it doesn't feel like there's a massive skill gap between the players. That's my issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, also like speaking on like the franchising bit of it, you could probably speak a little bit too, but like, I don't know, I can't get behind like the LA Thieves or like the New York Cloud9. Like it sounds like
The city, you don't like the city-based model?
No, dude, it sounds like WNBA teams, and like I don't want to watch the WNBA. You know, like it sounds like I'm watching the LA Sparks. You know, I could touch on. I think franchising has done irreparable damage to esports. You guys could probably touch on it too.
I think it's done damage to esports, but I think that conceptually I like it because it gives something that esports is missing, and it gives you something to pull for. It gives you something. You come in blind, and you're like, who should I cheer for, right? So if you come into football, right, American football, and you're like, I don't know who to pull for, you can start with your home state. You can be like, oh, I want to pull for the Carolina Panthers. And then you realize Carolina Panthers don't do anything good. So then you start looking outside, right, and you start finding those things. Same thing here with franchising. So I think the concept is good, but the esports isn't ready financially for that. That's a whole other tangent we could go down.
I think the 3 new people going to watch COD, like CDL, do not care about the Carolina Royal Ravens or whatever.
It's really interesting. So this past weekend, the minor happened, and so LA Thieves showed up and just smoked everybody. And this is kind of like what they're calling the current, powerhouse roster, dynasty team, going to smoke everybody all year, which is Envoy, Scraps, Ghosty, and Hydra. So these are players that are that have made their names in other teams, but they're kind of come together. And honestly, they smoked everybody. They beat Carolina Royal Ravens 3-0. And then they went to the finals and beat the Surge 4-3, which was a really close series. It was pretty back and forth. But when we look at this, it's like that's a team that's showing up and beating everybody, and everyone's saying that that's the current dynasty roster. But it's also like when you look at it, it does feel a little bit like a lot of teams can show up any given Sunday and beat them. Basically, the Surge going there. The Surge is a pretty new roster where there isn't a lot of players. Like they're kind of coming out of nowhere. They made a roster change recently, and it helped them a lot. And so they've kind of been able to bounce back. And I think that's really interesting when it comes to the landscape of Call of Duty, because you have this idea that like changing rosters quickly allows you to grow and get better faster because of the game, and it's like how much practice are we putting in and all these different pieces to it. So it's interesting as you compare that to like the VCT and the Call of Duty, how they do differentiate between the teams, the game, and the environment that exists within that from the strategy perspective.
Well, totally. In COD's defense, these guys are playing a new game every single year.
Totally, yeah.
So it's like you're watching these guys as they've like played the game for like 3 months. So there's definitely like a learning curve that comes to it. And I think that like, yeah, like I can shine on some like cooler grassroots stuff, but again, like when I'm watching the VCT, I want to see stuff that like I want to be able to go do in like my normal comp games. I'm gonna see like Jogmo go hit a crazy flick, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's sick. I don't think I could do that.
I think you could do it. I mean, I actually think that Call of Duty is the most relatable for people to be like, I can go do this, right?
Because I feel like
it's very
accessible.
It's a very arcadey style shooter. The TTK is really high, so it's like learning your spots, learning your movement. I mean, the Omni movements. It's really weird to watch from a spectating point of view, but like I think that the system itself is kind of neat for Call of Duty. But I mean, listen, everyone outside of this room knows, and I don't know how you guys know, I am the biggest Call of Duty hater on the planet, right? I think that the games are garbage. I think that the esport is garbage, right? So, like, I try to look for the good in it, right? And that's why, like, franchising, is it bad for esports? Probably. Is it good for to get people into it? Probably, right? But, yeah, I agree with you. I just think LA Thieves, are they the team, right? Is this the roster? I think the minor was online. Can anyone correct me on that? It wasn't a LAN tournament.
I don't
right?
know,
So
actually.
I think it was online. I don't think this proves anything.
It was online. It was online.
I think so many teams look good here. I don't think anyone expected Seattle Surge to be in the finals. Cloud9 looked really good throughout this whole thing. I watched some of their games. Optic, I think, is very much in like their rebirth stage, right? Because they just lost Scump, right? This is Kenny's year to evolve and become a leader. I think a lot's going to change when we get to that first major and we're on LAN. But LA Thieves does look good. I don't want to take anything away from them. But are they the team? I think there's too much left to be said.
They look good. It's way too early to call them a dynasty roster, though. Especially in grand finals, they only win by one game. Like, that could have easily gone Surge's way.
Yeah.
And then no one's ever thrown out the word dynasty if, like, the other guys just happen to win one more game, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Neptune showed up in a huge way. Neptune was playing insane.
Yep.
Former Halo guy, by the way. He started in Halo 5 and was on that top 3 roster on Renegades for, like, up until Halo 5 ended. And it felt like he never had enough time to cook. Like, he was really rising. He was only like 15 or something. So
Yeah, you can't blame him for leaving that game.
well, I mean, nobody was playing the game at the time that he left because they went back to Halo 3 at that time. But yeah, he seems to be finding his stride, and now he's with this new roster. And Abuza was playing insane as well. Both those two as a duo, I think, are going to be doing a lot of damage this year.
Yeah, I want to hit one point that you're on for the whole Call of Duty audience. You guys need to stop using the word dynasty just so freely. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, the amount of times you guys ask about a dynasty, you've had one. It's called complexity. Optic Dynasty wasn't even a dynasty. You had complexity. That's a dynasty.
I think my bigger issue with it is it's such a. It feels like you're either in the club or out of the club. Like, they all kind of know each other, and like it's really, really hard to enter the space. Specifically, one, because the challenger scene has there's a huge amount of turmoil that goes on their roster shifts. So it's like you kind of pick the right roster on the right weekend to play with the team that knows the guy, so that if you do win, you can, be in the conversation to go try and get a spot on a new roster. And that is how you see players kind of cycle through. And it does feel a little gatekeepy at times. And like, because I've watched the same players, I feel like, for years in the Call of Duty scene. Like, Scump has been there for a long time. He's retired now, right? But we knew, I don't know, the Abizi and Simp duo. Like,
Clayster.
The Clayster. You've seen that, right? I think there's a lot of guys that have kind of been in that scene that have just stuck around for a while. And we are seeing new folks. I'm not saying it's not possible. Like, Ghosty's a new name that we haven't seen recently who came from the CCL that's been really, really good. But ultimately, there's this level of, like, how do you enter the Call of Duty scene? I think it's just a little bit more unkept in some ways.
It's very clicky. It seems like like it's easy to play the game. It's accessible from like a casual standpoint. But if you want to like get into the upper echelons and like join a God Squad, like, you got to play politics. But that's the case for
like,
everything, though.
Streamers to pros, is that a thing?
Most people go pro to streamer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they switch it. I mean, they normally stream while they're playing. But I always said that the players needed to do 3 things. They should stream full time, they should upload VODs, and then they should compete and play and practice, right?
Totally.
It's really hard to do all 3 of those simultaneously without kind of hiring out. I think you can. But I think what you said is really important. I think one of the reasons we do see them is because the current Call of Duty sphere has players that have a high level of emotional intelligence because they've been able to navigate those waters to get to that spot. I don't think you land there by accident. You can't just be amazing at the game without having some level of emotional intelligence because of the roster turmoil stuff. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist in other games. VCT is going to have the same thing on the challenger side to get through there. They're going to be similar. It's just because Call of Duty is a little bit more accessible and the player base is higher, it does create a different kind of demographic that makes it more challenging to kind of fight through some of those.
Yeah, I've heard that same point for Call of Duty as much as I've heard it echoed in League, and I think it's just because of player base. So you hear it's got to exist everywhere.
It does.
But one of the big examples in Call of Duty has been like Parasite. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought Parasite should be in the CDL for a long time, but obviously I don't know the guy. I played him in 1 game battles and he wrecked me. But like I've heard he's like very emotional. He's very outspoken, so a lot of players don't want to deal with him.
Sure.
Right. And
yeah.
so,
You either hate him or you love him.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And so because you get into that spot, you get outcast by one team or one coach, and those circles all talk. Well, then they exile you from the rest of them, and you're just stuck in challengers or doing streaming.
Purgatory.
So.
Yeah, and And ultimately, I think, we haven't really talked about this, but I kind of opened up the door on the Optic side where it's like those guys are just not performing. They made the switch from Hook back to Pred, which Pred been playing with them. They did really well. They won, the championship last year. That's great for them. But they really haven't regained since that moment. And Optic as a whole, I always view them as like, you can kind of see the personalities more on that side because they're in more content and stuff. And it's like, it's very clear to me that Kenny and Pred do not get along. And I think that's one of the reasons that Kenny is not performing is because the introduction of Pred to that conversation is definitely not good for his mental game.
I've seen it happen on so many rosters, especially in the Halo scene. It's like you guys have one bad series or one bad tournament, and then it's like somebody becomes the scapegoat. And now the vibes are totally off on the team. Like everyone's subconsciously like not taking any responsibility for them losing or like stepping up and changing the vibe on the squad. And it kind of feels like that's what's going on with Optic. Like their vibes are just all the way sideways right now.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's fixable until they make like another team change perhaps. Or they need to have like a really big like come to Jesus moment together as a team and like really turn things around. But right now it's clear their vibes are not what they used to be.
The last time someone had that storyline was 100 Thieves. Kenny was on it. Kenny was conflicting with the team apparently. And you know what happened at the end of that year? Everyone kept saying they should roster swap. Everyone kept saying they should change it up. 100 Thieves won that whole like final CDL Worlds, right? They won it all with the same roster. And the reason for that is because Nate Schott started 100 Thieves. He came from Optic, and he came from the family atmosphere, which is what Optic's all about. They're not going to swap these rosters out unless they absolutely have to. When you're in Optic, you're family. And so people keep pushing this narrative, right? And I think that this is like the perfect thing of like you're sitting at home on a Sunday and you want to be the football coach, right? Everyone thinks that they want to be an esports manager. At the end of the day, this is how these teams are going to grow. They're not going to grow from winning constantly. They're going to grow from their losses. So yes, Kenny needs to grow because Kenny's now in that full leadership spot. So Kenny is the veteran. Kenny has to step up. Kenny has to evolve now. And I think that over the next few minors and majors, I think we're going to see that. I truly believe that towards the end of this year, Optic's going to be a major playing force in this.
I mean, I could see the timeline as well. It's like they lose pretty bad. They're the laughing stock of the CDL right now. And that's like a driving force that lights a fire under them. Like, okay, we got to actually take this serious and like change something, right? And it really just depends on the attitudes of the players because sometimes the loss will make a team worse and sometimes it'll make them better. Like you said, this is a roster full of champions though, so I do expect, like you said, them to turn things around in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, talking from COD, I mean, especially as a casual player, it's a game that is always evolving, So it's just how quickly it's going to take for a team like that who's known to bounce back for the patch to change, something to change, and then they're right back on top.
Well, something about that too is like something that drives me nuts about Call of Duty is the fact that like, because it's made every year, there's normally a handful of broken things and bugs that come out, and they have their kind of atmosphere of gentlemen's agreements, right? Where like Valorant, you don't see that, right? The game is the game, you play
the game.
But like there's chats where the captains of each team come together and they say, hey, we're going to ban sniper rifles.
Right. Aren't they like banning snaking right now?
They ban different movement techniques. They ban all these different things. And then you look at the game modes where like there's only certain maps that are competitive and there's only certain game modes that are competitive. And I think the publisher builds a lot of different maps and modes and things like that, but they never really transfer probably because the gameplay is so awful if you did. Like if you played certain games and certain modes and certain maps, it would be terrible to play and terrible to watch. And I think that's really interesting because like Call of Duty is made for the casual player, right? We have turned it into an esport because we love esports, and it's an entry drug for me. I played Halo first, like Eli, and then I kind of transitioned to Call of Duty, and like that's where my gaming sphere started. I play Valorant now, right? It's kind of like the upgrade from there, right? Because I know Valorant,
real man's game.
Well, it's not broken, right? And it's competitive in nature. There's not hackers, like there's all of these things that go into it. But it's interesting that Activision's focus is a little bit more like for the casual player. Maybe from a dollar's perspective, maybe they're trying to make more money, but ultimately the CDL has a really big issue on like trying to force this stuff because the game is not really meant for it.
Totally, and I think a big point of like all esports, especially gaming wise, is like, is an esport good because of the casual like player base wanted to go, or is an esport good just because of the game? And I think in this case, it's obviously the latter.
Well, I mean, I think that to go back to your point, I think that this is where franchising becomes an issue, right? So you as Activision, you want to own this league, you want to ask these teams to give you, whatever the amount is. We'll just say $10 million each, right? Give us $10 million, we'll host this tournament for you, but you get no say in this game, right? And in a lot of ways, it's because, truthfully, the COD players are just whiny, right? There's no other way to put it. They don't let this stuff exist, right? And in Valorant or Counter-Strike, you see something that's a little broken, people lean into it, right? In Call of Duty, if something's broken, it's all in flames. These Call of Duty players are just up in arms that you can't do this, you got to GA this, and God forbid one team break that GA because it starts this whole other cascade of whininess. They're like soccer players, right? And that's really the problem that I've always had with this scene is you don't even like your own game. You make a modified version of your game, right?
I think you see it right now with Valorant. There's a big topic about the SD stuff. People are just jumping off as soon as the spike goes down, and it's they're gonna abuse that until the day Riot patches it,
Yeah.
But if that was in COD, like you said, they'd be going team caps and pick, oh yeah, what kind of stinks? Maybe we can come together on this one, just make it better.
Yeah.
You never see that in Riot.
They always say the same thing. They say that they do it for the viewership experience, but I don't know, personally, man, I think it'd be kind of sick. Now, I'm not as good as these players. I'm going to be honest with you. So maybe there's some legitimacy in some of their claims, but I want to see shotguns. I want to see some LMG action. I want to see you play the Call of Duty game that everyone else is playing because that's what you can get. That's when players can start to get into it, the casual players.
If the snaking is the peak of COD right now,
it breaks the game.
Cool.
Well,
right?
Snaking is horrible, right?
Yeah.
That's just abusing a mechanic. I understand stuff like that, but the actual they'll ban most grenades, they'll ban most kill streaks. They won't ban them, they'll GA them, right? So a team could use them, but if you use it, then every other team in the league is gonna blacklist you. They're not gonna scrim you. They're not gonna help you get better, right? So
that's fine. We'll make a team tomorrow. We'll go in and we'll use everything that's outlawed. All right. And I guarantee you, we'll be on that list. We'll be somewhere.
I am curious why a team hasn't just showed up and been screw that, I'm just going to use whatever.
We've seen it. It was one of the European teams in CDL. They showed up and they used some. It was a few years back, but they used some gun that was GA'd, and it's caused.
Did
all
everyone
this
cry about it?
Yeah. So then other teams now in the rest of that tournament, other teams they would come in, they would bring loadouts in with those GA'd guns, right, to play them because you couldn't trust them anymore. And so that's the whole thing is you go into the map and now you can customize your loadouts on the fly so you can adapt a little easier. But it's just it's a whole
This was a huge talking point in Halo last year. I mean, the pros GA'd 5 weapons on the map. No shotguns, no assault rifles, no heat wave. All these guns are GA'd. But then somebody made a tweet that was all right, hypothetically, it's 48-48, Game 7, World Championship. You're next to the shotgun. Are you picking it up? I don't know, because at that point, it's you're going to win $100,000 if you pick up this gun and kill this guy.
Yeah.
But is it worth the aftermath and everybody hating you afterwards?
You get unlegitimized, you didn't, because you used that thing, it's not a legitimate win.
Yeah.
It is very intriguing because because of the social, once again, Call of Duty has a huge emotional game that comes into it, right? I want to be accepted in this group, and so I will not break the social rules that have been created in order to make the game playable based off of the relationship with the publisher. And so it is definitely challenging a little bit of that. And obviously, you haven't seen somebody do it to the point where it's they just win because of it. There's been a couple moments. There was the HBR moment in Call of Duty 2, Black Ops 2, sorry. And then the smoke grenades in Black Ops 2 with the thermals. And so there were some little moments, but nobody's really tested that boundary since then. And it's probably because they know they won't get picked up afterwards. You're not going to win that and then expect people to love you. You kind of get outcast. And so you definitely are challenging some of those things. And that's really hard.
As the former, you're the former pro here. Prime Halo 2, how would you feel to just ban the Magnum? Or ban the sniper because it was
we didn't even think about GAs back then, man. It was so different.
Yeah.
If you transplant Halo 2 to today, the sword would 100% be GA. The sword was completely broken in Halo 2. You could do a button combo to launch yourself across the map with the sword and then slice the guy in the face. But back then we're just screw
that's
it.
Tech though. That's
Wild
cool,
West. Yeah, it was it's cool tech,
tech,
right? And then there was people I was known for button glitches the double shot and the BXR, but there's a group of people that are no, that's cheating. You can't do a BXR or double shots. That
I think I saw
the developer didn't intend
about
that.
that one time.
You probably saw my montage. Yeah.
Your little brains doing it.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's such an interesting topic to me from the developer standpoint because it's really hard to balance weapons and guns for both the casual players and the professionals.
Totally.
Because the professionals can do stuff with these guns that a casual cannot. So it's like you don't want to neuter the experience of the casuals just because the pros are super good with it. So it's like the developers need to understand they can make a mode that's specifically for competition, and they can still have like a competitive mode and a ranked mode that's like got more guns in it, but it's like this is the mode for pros, this is the mode for ranked, and this is the like super casual mode, right? Sure. And I think a lot of developers are still trying to find the balance between those. And it's tough. Like sniper rifle in Halo, you put it in a pro's hand, they might get 8 kills with the 8 bullets that are in the gun because they're just not going to miss. But you put 8 bullets in a platinum player's hands, he might get 1 kill.
Well, it's also the idea of like when you play Valorant, it's search and destroy, right? We are introducing respawns into these games, which then you get into a spawn system, and it is different because of that.
Yeah,
you have to acknowledge those things and then figure out how that works with the game. Because a gun might work for search and destroy, does not work for hardpoint for whatever reason it has.
Yeah, like you don't see a lot of snipers on hardpoint.
No.
I mean, League is. I always use League, right? But League is just like it is the best esport in my mind because they already have this problem solved. Just like you said, when the pros want to come in and the pros want to scrim and they want to pretend like they're at the LCS studio, they go into the tournament mode. They have their own key that they can access, and guess what? You're playing on whatever those tournament rules are. If you're playing in a patch where you can't play the new champ, hey, you can't play it in this tournament mode. Cool, right? But outside of that, you're playing the same game that literally everyone else is playing.
I don't know. I think you see that problem in League though, where like they nerf Zed on purpose for like casual play because if he was at his full potential, he would absolutely dominate in pro.
Well, they do a lot of analysis between your higher elos and your low, right? So they're pretty good about targeting those bans where if they see something's really problematic for like your bronze players, right, they're going to adjust it so that the wider population has enjoyment for it, but it doesn't neuter it for pros, right? So sometimes, right, something is just that broken. And
I would say it almost hurts the casual player in that sense because a champ like Zed is purposely weaker for the casual player.
You can win with anything for the casual player.
I mean,
it doesn't matter.
It's a skill difference.
Yeah, like you enjoy playing Zed, you're just going to enjoy playing Zed, right? You're going to just queue up, you're going to pick Zed no matter what. But now, like, they've broken down barriers to where they're like, oh, you want to jungle with Zyra, Zed? Cool. Like, there's specific things. If you're a jungler, you have Smite on, now you get buffs against jungle monsters. Almost any champ can jungle.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir. You're looking at Team Mungle in A1 right here, okay? Teemo jungle.
But that's the point I'm getting to is, like, they're making it so you're watching a pro in League, maybe, like, the exception is Faker, right? But if someone does something on that screen, you can do it here. If I want to go play Call of Duty and I watch the Call of Duty League, right? And then I go home to play it, it's a whole different game. I'm not even playing with the same rule set. I'm going to be like, oh, I want to use this gun. Well, they're only using that gun because the more broken gun they G8'd.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so like CDL has the GAs, ranked play does not. That's always been my issue with ranked play. It's like the things that are broken show up in ranked play, and that's an issue. Been an issue for the years because it's like I can't play the CDL. The CDL rules at all unless I'm scrimming, right? Off the actual game.
And one of the Black Ops, they had, okay, cool, well, you guys want a GA stuff, we'll do a pick ban system in Call of Duty.
Black Ops
and you
3,
know what the pros did? That wasn't even good enough. They cried more. They said, oh, well, first we got to GA 20 things, and then we'll pick ban from there.
Yeah.
Right? So then it's like, now I'm playing an even more neutered game. Like, COD pros hate their own game, and that's what's always driven me up the wall with it.
Yeah,
I think the shows are turning into we hate CDL.
Yeah,
I will rant on Call of Duty.
Yeah, there's definitely some issues on that side. I love it because it was my introduction to esports in a lot of ways. But I also like have seen it change over the years, and maybe I've changed over the years too. And so it's been challenging to kind of come back to it, and knowing that it's my one true love. That it's like not my one true love anymore.
I think that, you know what I think it needs personally? I truly believe Call of Duty needs a good competitor against it now. Because there's not really a game that competes with COD, so COD doesn't have to evolve. So like I'm always preaching where I'm like,
X-Defiant was.
X-Defiant was never, guys. I listened. Well, it was never kind. It was supposed. It was its intent, but it didn't get the player base. It didn't get the support. Right? Call of Duty doesn't have. The last time Call of Duty had competition and it had to keep evolving and had to keep changing was Halo.
Yeah.
Right, and
Oh, that's true.
and that is when Call of Duty was at its best because it had to outsell Halo, which was a huge arcade shooter title. Right, and they're not even really the same genre when you look at it, but these were the two titans, and they competed against each other. Now Call of Duty, no offense, Halo is on its own. Right, it doesn't need to evolve. So when all these players are crying year over year, and they keep giving them their $60, or now it's on Game Pass, whatever. Right, someone needs to develop something, and players need to support it. That was the problem with X Defiant, is it was made, it was good, but players wouldn't go to it because it's not Call of Duty.
It sounds like tensions were really high a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean,
I played both.
but it was.
I played both. Most people played.
I mean, I played the last.
But it
Halo, I
was
thought
beautiful
great.
because you went to an MLG event, you saw both.
You saw both. Yeah, that's right.
Right, and that was the thing is when you went there, you wanted to be able to compete. So like, if I go into the pits in Call of Duty, I get knocked out. Maybe I can go play in the Halo one too.
Is there
right?
not an event coming up that's Halo and COD?
Yeah, DreamHack Dallas. We'll be there.
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
It's going to be the first time that COD and Halo have been in the same building in over a decade.
That's why I want to be there, baby.
It's going to be
That's
sick.
going to be
God.
the last one.
There's probably going to be a
going
Smash
feral
tournament there
for a little
too.
bit.
It's going to
Yeah.
be like a whole LG.
Dallas is awesome. The DreamHack events are really fun as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
There's just all kinds of crap to do. Make it really exciting. I have a couple little topics that I just want to jump through really quickly. There is a team, and I don't know a lot about this team, the Mongols, and they are now government funded. So a government funded esports team. Well, I don't know.
Counter-Strike.
They're playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Oh, I did watch a tournament with them on them recently.
I think it's really interesting. I did some research on this earlier today because it caught my interest as well. It's like, I mean, Mongolia as a country doesn't have a lot of like sports
Anything.
interest. Like they're good at horse racing, archery. I think those are like the only two, and now Counter-Strike apparently. So I don't know. I guess it's cool that a government recognized that like this is putting Mongolia on the map for competitive gaming or just games in general. And
Did they have a team before? Because you said they were good. Like, are they actually good?
Yeah, they're
Or-
actually good. I think
Yeah?
I want to say they've made a top 4 at a few big tournaments. So I don't know. It's the first time that I've ever heard of a government-sponsored esports team. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, it's something we've seen, especially as of recent. I mean, we talked about all the franchising stuff earlier. This is like the antichrist of franchising.
Right.
I mean, I'm just going to give you guys the selfless plug. You guys are not unfamiliar with government-funded esports, right? Because you got Vessel, right? So government's investing in high school esports. Government's investing into college esports. We've seen a lot of collegiate programs. So, I mean, I feel like this is just a natural progression. Now, I'm not as educated on this topic, so I don't understand if there's like any, government or country issues there. But at the end of the day, I think it's a natural progression. So I think it's cool that the government wants to invest because they see a long-term future in this. I think it'll get there with normal esports too. Franchising may evolve into that, right?
I'm curious how it actually happened. It's like,
Well,
somebody,
I'm looking at their record. 2024, they won a big tournament. They won first in
$500.
the Thunder Pick World Championship, which was $500,000.
Oh, there's a comma.
And they probably have a total of about, it looks like it's close to $1 million, maybe a little bit more in basically this past year. I say that it's probably a little less than $1 million, but within 12 months, they've racked up $1 million in winnings, which is pretty
We need
impressive.
the government funding.
Yeah.
They're already loaded.
Well, I think the interesting thing about government funding is like what it actually means. So like as an esports owner, you're going to take a percentage of the prize winnings for the most part. You're going to pay salaries and you're going to build the environment for the team to be successful. And so I'd imagine it has some of those characteristics, but which one of them I don't know. And what actually makes a Counter-Strike team better is interesting because like I don't know if it's playing more or how you practice or whatever because the game's so evolved.
So from what I understand, government is paying for their housing, paying them salaries on top of that, and like just basic human needs to live, like food and whatever.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking about is like, how does this actually come to be? And we all know politics is a big part of a lot of this stuff, right? Like, does one of the players just have a family member that's like in the government and was like, hey, this is my gaming team. We're freaking dope. We just won this tournament. And then somehow got an in. But at the same time, even if that is how it came to be, does this set the precedent for other countries to be like, oh, maybe we need to get our own team as well?
I just don't see the benefit for the country other than brand recognition more than anything else.
But it's
right?
like, does the country need a brand recognition?
Yeah, exactly. It's very strange.
I mean, you can make
What
a
are they
case of,
selling? Like,
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
it's like maybe a smaller country, like you said, it kind of like, not that we don't know where like Mongolia is.
first
but
of
it's, like,
all,
kinda puts it
Mongolia
on
is the
map in a way.
18th largest country in the world by landmass. I researched this earlier, but
What
they only
what
have about
population.
3.4 million people living there, which my hometown of Virginia Beach has the same population. So, yeah, it's a lot of open space. But it is weird though. Like, what are they advertising? Like, do they want people to move there because they've got a dope Counter-Strike team? Like,
And we know it's not ROI positive. Like, they're not doing it to make money. I don't think that there's a deal to be made for them because no esports org in the world is profitable to this point. I'd say that there might be one or two that have a sponsorship deal that puts them over the edge, or maybe they sell enough T-shirts. But ultimately, like, most of them run a negative every single
for
year.
sure.
That's why they have to
I
run.
wonder
but is it a
like
pride
the-
thing like the Olympics? Like, you want to have your country be the best team in the Olympics.
Totally.
That
So
was
you
the
invest-
point I was gonna say.
Yeah, so
Pride.
you invest in that, and then now your country is beating up other countries, and you can root for them. And
Well, esports are going to be in the Olympics, right? So they're kind of just setting the stage for it. At some point, we're gonna see an American team, right? Who are those players that you draft?
that'll be
right?
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm so ignorant to soccer, but I feel like it's kind of setting like the path for like soccer clubs, right? Where you have there's like 30 different teams in Britain or whatever, but you're gonna have something like that, like your Barcelonas and all that. I just gotta have that for countries or states or whatever, right? That's
I just like
eventually gets
I wonder how like the citizens like feel about it because this is coming out of like tax money, is it not?
Well, it is. I think the culture is different over there, specifically from America or Europe to the Asian culture. Where
Do they care about esports?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's,
yeah, dude.
there-
Yeah,
they
they're
have a
big.
lot more invested into the space. There's esports specific
I'm
schools
impressed.
that you can go to, and so they invest a lot into that, and that's why they've been so dominant League of Legends because they just smoke everybody.
Yeah, and you have a lot of like you don't really play on your computer at home. You go to cafes. It's like a whole
That's kind of
completely
cool.
different
That's
thing.
actually kind of sick.
Right, so I mean, it's a whole different vibe. Like when EDG or when SKT win Worlds for League, I mean, they like throw like
yeah.
whole city parades. Like it's a whole
Yeah,
celebration.
it would be similar to the effect of like the Super Bowl
Yeah.
Yeah.
for them. There's a parade, and they do a lot of different stuff.
So is their team kind of like the T1 of like their country?
I mean, I don't know of
like-
any other team.
Oh,
in
for
the
I mean,
sure.
country
because
that-
yeah, for sure.
because Faker's like LeBron, where he's from, you know.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like one of the most famous like athletes, period,
Yeah.
in the world, right? Like,
Which is sick, by the way.
Well, the fact that we don't know any of the players on this Mongols roster, maybe it's because we're stupid or because they're really not that well
we
known,
might
you
just
know?
be uncultured. This might be the new wave.
Well, yeah, I just don't know enough about Counter Strike, and even like the tournaments. When I was looking at the bracket you were looking up, like I don't know those tournaments.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
That's not to discredit them, but I'd love to see them grow and come to the stage and like really see how good they are. Because
Yeah.
then that paves the way for the future, right? If a country invests in a team and they're like, go represent our country, you come out and you dominate. I mean, other countries might look into that.
It's like I think we all want what's best for esports in the day. Like we want to see it grow. We want to see it go more to the high school level, more to the collegiate level, make it more accessible. And like if this is what it means,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on board.
The government funding model is definitely intriguing. I think where do the incentives lie for them so that they can do it long term? That's always my concern. It's like,
Totally.
is it a long term thing
Yeah.
that they're going to continue to do, or does it become short term money that then gets destroyed? Like that's not good at the same time. So you want it to have longevity.
it can generate some interesting like situations in the country too. Like now, are there a bunch of amateur players that are like, now I feel like I'm playing for a spot on the Mongolian Counter-Strike team. So now they're like it's not like
Citizenship? You're gonna get your citizenship so you can go play over there.
yeah, who knows, man? Or like Faker, like I know it's a big thing in Korea that certain players won the tournament so that they don't have to join the military. Like
Yeah.
things like that can be a big deal, and maybe that's going to be the case for the Mongolian team as well.
Yeah, we'll have to watch them. We'll definitely keep in touch and kind of tap them. The one other thing I want to talk about, and you're gonna love this, Seth. The myth, the man, the legend, Wolf Glick shows
goat.
up. He's the GOAT at the Pokemon VGC tournament, and I saw the clip because it's amazing. Hopefully they show the clip at some point during this episode. But ultimately, this bro just walks up. It's like there was 1,000 people competing in this tournament, and none of them were good enough to beat me.
He did it good too. He like hyped him up. He was like very emotional. He's like, everyone came here, we trained, we came together, and no one stood a chance. It's just like you don't see that, especially from like a Pokemon player. Like you wouldn't expect it, you know.
Yeah, so break down just I don't know how many of the viewers are gonna actually watch like the Pokemon scene, and it was new to me, so I would
Totally.
imagine they just need like what is the breakdown of what is this a card game? Is it on a console? Like what are we playing?
Yeah, so this is like from the actual Switch. This is the last main series Pokemon game. You're playing in doubles format Like people have been doing this forever, especially this Wolfie guy. I think he was like 2016, whatever, like global champion, like big time. And he hasn't won like really since, especially recently. So him coming up and winning this, already a big deal.
Has
Like,
someone else been beating him or like just?
I think it's just everyone. I think like, especially with Pokemon, it draws in people from like every region, which is pretty cool. Like you love to see it. And like he has a massive YouTube and stuff where he like really goes in like the breakdowns and stuff. So like he has a massive fan base already and like people that like, want to see him win. Like I'm pretty sure after like every like international regional tournament, he does like a big breakdown of like, oh, this is the team I used. I took all these starter Pokemon in and used it. And like even as a casual player, it makes me just want to like watch. And then like hearing him on the big stage, like being a little toxic, I think it's sick. I think more games could use it.
I think more games should use it, right?
Oh.
Like, I mean, again, guys, I'm sorry I'm broken record, but like League was at its best when there was trash talk, right? You had Double Lift who could create narratives, right? You had that rival in the scene. Same thing here. I think this is perfect, and this set the stage. Maybe this was planned, maybe not, but this to set the stage for that new Pokemon Stadium style game that's coming out on I'm assuming it's Switch 2.
2v2.
Yeah, you're gonna have.
Yeah.
You're gonna.
That'll be what we queue up for the next one.
And
Yeah,
that game is so hyped because it's going to shift the whole dynamic of Pokemon as we know it, because you're going to have these different generations and these different effects. You have like your Megas, you have your what is the Sword and Shield? Yeah, Gigantamax. Dynamax. So you're going to have Dynamax. You're going to have Mega stages, right?
I think it's going to make it way more accessible.
You're gonna have this huge spectrum of things you have to deal with now, whereas before it was isolated per generation. So a lot of people are really hyped for the future of Pokemon competitive, and I love it. I mean, I watch a lot of Nuzlocke and stuff like that for Pokemon Scene. I watch a lot of those breakdowns from him too. There's a lot in that scene from like you go and you breed your Pokemon, you need perfect IVs. Like there's so much investment to do it to build up, and if you don't have that perfect Pokemon, like you're just gonna fail against someone who has perfect IVs. But the thought process behind all the moves, what you can learn, and 2v2s just takes the dynamic and multiplies it. There's just so many factors you have to deal with. It's really competitive and deep.
So when you're talking about the new one, like I guess cross-pollinating generations, does that mean me as a boomer Pokemon player, I can just focus on like the red and blue original 150, and I still have a chance to play against, the Zoomers like Seth?
Yeah, I think the way if I understood it correctly, I would need to double check, but you would have to play. You have to play the originals, and then you have to transfer everything into Pokemon Home, which is like on your mobile phone.
To be fair, that's already a headache.
Yeah, but it's gotten better, right? The new Home is a lot better. So you put it all there, and then you can transfer it into this new game. And play with all
that's pretty cool though, to design a system that's like cross-generational. So like I could literally pull out and dust off the old Game Boy and like start training my Pokemon and then load them into
so many cables, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you're gonna need so much.
But everyone's got their fingers crossed that they're gonna give us the classic Pokemon on Switch, right? It's been like in the rumor mill for a while. So if they
like the 2D top-down style.
Yeah, like the GBA like emulators and stuff, because like emulators are already like massive. Like literally on my phone, I can play like Heart Gold and like Soul Silver, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
But, like being able to have it on my Switch and like not having to like not that I pirate it or anything, but
they need to go back to that old model though. I don't know. There's something so satisfying about like the OG Pokemon experience, and these like open world games are cool and fun, but it's like it doesn't feel like Pokemon to me. But maybe I'm just a boomer.
Did you guys do Pokemon Go?
Yes.
what's Pokemon Go?
Yeah, stop it. Yeah, but like that was like it. What was great about that at the time is I remember being at a park. And I was watching, because I was playing Pokemon Go, and like you start looking around, and everyone's catching Pokemon. Like, and people would like find Pokemon and like shout it out and be like, "Yo, there's this over here," and there'd be like 40 people running that direction. And I think like that virality is really important for them.
Sure. Dude, my mom was playing it.
Yeah,
it's like sick because like people do rock with Pokemon.
Yeah,
and it's like it is something everyone can get into.
Yeah,
like I think it's way more accessible than like COD or something, because like I think people will be way more okay with their kids going to like catching Pokemon and like going and shooting people,
Right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like when you talk about a new game in the right time, and like Pokemon has that kind of lightning in a bottle where like if you catch it at the right time and the right thing, like it might be something that everyone kind of grabs onto. Because I'm like you, I'll play the emulators, and it's very like you kind of get nostalgic about going and catching the Pokemon, beating the trainers, doing all the things. And so I kind of missed back in the day. We'd have 2 Game Boys, and there was a cable you put them into each other and you duel each other with your Pokemon.
Or
right?
trade your Pokemon.
Coliseum,
Or
actually,
trade 'em.
yeah.
That's
And
right,
and that was the only way to evolve to Gengar.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
They only,
Trade
and
a
so they were
hunter.
like,
Twisted Spoon with Alakazam, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
man.
right. And so there's little levers here where it's like, I hope they tap back into that because I think it's so nostalgic. Like my wife is into it and my wife hates games. And so it's like, if she's going for it, like we got to get it.
Totally.
And I think that's important for esports in some ways too. Like if it becomes something where it's a game that can be competitive in nature, that's really important.
I think that's why a lot of mobile games take off. I mean, like
Mobile
COD
games.
mobile esport, huge. PUBG esports mobile, huge, right? Because it's accessible, so naturally you inflate the player base, and your pro scene's going to be like 0.01% of those players. So if you have more players, naturally people are going to funnel in. You're going to grab that little atmosphere that you can create for esports. Perfect. So.
Yeah, well, this has been Queued Up. We've loved hanging out with you. We've talked about a lot of different stuff. If you want to hear us talk about something specifically, go to the comments down there. Let us know. We'll bring it up at a certain topic so we can kind of debate it, and we'd love to be able to have you be a part of the conversation via the comments down there. So we'll be there interacting with you guys. But thanks for joining us for another episode of Queued Up, and we will see you again soon.
Just not COD. I don't want to talk about COD.